using different types of technology. What was the reaction to that class? And you put it on the Facebook and probably other social media. Have you got any comments on that? Which
Comments would usually come from students themselves, telling me that they want to have more classes like that done, and why it hasn't been done before. Yeah, those are the sort of comments that I do get. Like, I've started this year, right? So for students who graduated last year, so they didn't have the chance to actually have it done during their time. So they're wondering, like, why are we starting now?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you focusing, by the way, on in terms of technology use on one particular form, or are you doing it in all the?
I'm actually like focusing more on Form 4 compared to Form 5, because Form 4 we have a bit more freedom in terms of the topics that I want to choose. So I'm not exam oriented there. I don't have this examination in mind.
Right.
So that's why I chose Form 4. Apart from that, I also chose it because like for the form that I did choose, like last time, like 4KE, they're the obedient ones. They won't play around, toy around too much with the technology and make me not achieve my aims in the lesson.
Right. And you're just teaching Form 4 and Form 5?
Yes, only those two forms.
Okay. One of the things that you reflected on of that lesson, and I think I also commented on, was about spreading it out over a number of lessons, not feeling the need to use so many tools as you wonderfully did, but reflecting on it, obviously none of us have got time to prepare such kind of perfect lessons. Have you since that time kind of reduced the number of tools you're using in classes, or adapted what you were doing to reflect what you thought about that first one?
I actually did an extended version of that particular lesson.
Yeah.
Like I had another student in that Form 4 class who did not attend the lesson that you observed. She's a new student, but she's a really good presenter. So I had her present her Padlet during like one whole lesson, and she managed to do it like very in great detail, and she used the Padlet and everything, and it was a presentation enough to cover like half an hour even. Like so that's how we actually try to use it during that time that we have. There's no limitation in terms of time. I didn't limit her time, so I allowed her to speak more, and then she could elaborate more on what she wants to say.
What were the rest of the students doing?
The rest of the students, they were like, I made them respond to what she said and ask questions, so that there's like a two-way communication. Yeah.
Okay, and you felt that worked well?
I felt like that worked well in the sense that our topic was on war, right?
Yeah.
And she did even like cried a bit because she was like really into what she was saying. I guess another factor is because of the previous lessons done, because I asked her to read a little bit of the internet articles, so she was really into it. So that's the reason why I felt like it was quite effective in that sense.
Okay. And also last time when we came, or afterwards, you talked in your reflection about the initial response to the workshop being positive, and that some people even tried stuff out very quickly afterwards. Do you feel that initial positivity has continued, or has it dropped off again in the months that passed?
Perhaps in times like this, where we are having a lot of activities, like for right now we have Carnival co-curriculum, and then for the Form 5 we're actually having an extended lesson period, that instead of two periods we're now having 3 periods. So for us, for me and my mom, we actually like combined our classes, and we do use PowerPoint, as well as videos that we wanted to show and so on. But for other teachers, some of them, they prefer to be in the classes where there are no access to projectors and so on. So most of them, they prefer to use their modules in hard copy instead of
And you've still got the issues that overall in the school there are not that many classrooms that are equipped with projectors.
Definitely, that is the major issue here.
Okay. Another area you focused on in some of your reflection is the issue of technology being seen probably by teachers and students as a kind of fun thing to do, as opposed to the need to prepare students for exams, which is sort of the more serious thing to do. Have you in any way moved towards using technology and preparing for exam at the same
Yes,
time?
I would definitely say yes, because that's what we did today. One of the things I did actually tell you about was in the use of the PowerPoint
Yep.
to type things out. I find that very, very easy for us to do, because, like, for example, for today we did a letter of complaint.
Yep.
It was easier for me to show them an example format of a letter of complaint rather than me taking the time and showing my back to them
Yeah.
and writing on the board.
Right.
It's more of me facing them and then receiving feedback from them in terms of what they want to say in the letter of complaint, and then showing it, just typing, and then it comes out just like that. So it's easier for us right now. So I don't think there is a hindrance in terms of when we use ICT, we cannot prepare for examination. It's just that some of us might think like we want to use modules, we want to have it written down properly. So it depends on how we see it, I guess.
And what is there potential of adapting some of the other tools you've been trying, like Padlet, but that's just an example, so that they could be used with exam classes? Could you do exam-related things, or use YouTube for exam-related things? In the exams that you talk about, is there a listening paper?
No, that's the
right.
thing. There isn't a listening paper for SPM. We only have like writing,
Yeah.
especially for continuous essay. Directed essay is the one that there are points given and you write it down. So that's why most of us like would prefer for students to sit down, like listen to us, and no other things that they have to do other than that. So that's why if we actually have listening, which for PP3 we have listening.
Right.
So I might need to ask my colleague whether she did use a lot of videos and so on. I think it would be beneficial for her.
There are listening sites, and I don't remember if
for PP3.
I don't know specifically for that, but listening for different levels of learner, which some of those could be appropriate.
Perhaps.
Probably worth exploring, but
Yeah.
I don't know the answer on that one. Another big issue you mentioned a few times is about lack of preparation time for these other things. Have you found any solutions, or are there any solutions?
Well,
You've mentioned one actually, which is team teaching.
yes.
Yeah, right. Other.
Perhaps for me, I'd say I just need to just like manage my time well, because we do have like other clerical works that we need to do. But I did manage in a sense that if I feel like I really wanted to use it, I will definitely have a few things prepared, even if it's just like a few slides, or perhaps even if it's just like finding a video that I want to do. Like for example, the one I showed you, I was doing an essay on stress management. So I actually found one really like a song which would fit that topic, and I found the song and I did try, and I even like booked another room for science lab. Actually, it's not a language lab. So it's more of like where there's a will, there's a way. I believe that to be true then.
Okay, and have you got to the stage where you're able to, you mentioned that one lesson, but able to reuse things that you find? Because obviously once you've found things or even created material, you want to be able to use it again.
Yes, I do actually use it again, in the sense that I want all my students, for example, I'll use it in one class, I want the other classes to get the same experience, so I'll be repeating the same thing. And a good thing about that is that once we repeat our lessons, repeat the materials, we're going to be like a bit more experienced in using it. It's going to be more effective.
Yeah,
definitely.
usually goes better second time,
Yes.
I find.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk about meetings in your school. One thing I noticed in your feedback compared to the other schools' feedback, you emphasised more the fact that meetings tend to get taken up with admin type things, maybe a little bit of exam preparing, and you said other events take place when maybe less things should be happening. So that's a particular emphasis on yours. And even all of the schools say we don't get enough time, etc., etc. But you mentioned about meetings being more admin orientated than, well, not that more, just that they are admin orientated. is there any way around this? How can you prioritise actually learning, which is actually what we're talking about in this morning's workshop, in fact. How can you make a point of saying, no, look, we're not doing something else, we're doing this, this. Maybe, I don't know how often you have your admin type meetings, but
it's usually done on a Thursday, whereby the next week we're going to carry out the actual activities.
Right.
Yeah. So like last week for our lab for Thursday, so we had another meeting happening because for this week tomorrow we're going to have fun run, whereby it's a cross country run. So definitely there's going to be preparation done on a Thursday, because lack of time and so on. So we definitely have to go to that meeting instead of our meeting.
Right. Yeah. But is there any way, I don't know, let's say not every meeting, but once a month, somehow with, I don't know, head of panel or somebody, everybody agreeing that once a month the meeting is actually about professional development?
Yes. In actual sense, we do have it actually. Like once a month is not too much. I think we do have like once a month meeting. Like last time, what we did was like a teacher who had a course. She was asked to tell us what she had for the course. It was a course on poetry, how to include poetry techniques in lessons. So we did actually gain something from there. It's just that sometimes on the next weeks, sometimes we have we decide that we want to mark books and so on. There are times like that.
Okay. And talking externally, you mentioned, I've written him down here as the games and Instagram guy.
Oh, okay.
You went to a workshop or a seminar, you said?
It was a seminar.
Yeah.
It was for the whole district.
And so have there been many, is that a one-off example of where you've been to some kind of a place where technology ideas have been shared, or have you done that a few times, or even shared your own ideas?
The ones that I can remember, I think it's been at least 3 times that I've been sent on courses where we are expected to learn how to use ICT, like the one on Google for Educators, GEG, that one. Okay, so I've been to GEG twice. That's how I get the idea about Padlet and the use of Twitter and so on. And then there's one on the seminar that I did go to. Apart from that, most courses would be on English language teaching per se, rather than including ICT. Yeah.
How often do they happen? Just
courses that I've been sent. They don't really. Usually, the ones who are sent for courses are the head of the English panel.
Right.
And right now, another colleague is also having a course, IPG Temenggong Ibrahim, right? So I'm not so sure what that course is about, but for me, I don't really get it like too often. Yeah.
Like once a term.
Yeah.
Okay, and apart from your class that you did, apart from sharing on social media, did you in any way share with your own department through a WhatsApp group or any other means of sharing?
I don't think I did, but some of my colleagues are my social media friends, so they actually do get to see what I did use during the lessons. What could be the reason for not sharing? That would be an interesting thing to look at.
I thought about that question, but then I thought it was a rude question to ask. But since you've mentioned it, yes.
Why? I wouldn't want to think that I'm showing off or anything.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to think that I'm ahead of everybody else, or in any sense. Yeah, that is an honest answer. I guess.
Okay. Okay, that's mainly the questions on the one stage, the kind of things that you very, very informative feedback you gave us. The other thing I'd like to ask about is how people work together in their department, or in the department in particular, with regard to technology. Even though I take on board the fact that not that much is going to be used because facilities don't allow, etc. How many teachers are English?
So far, including the Teach for Malaysia teachers, we have 16.
16. And is that 16 in the morning or 16 spread across the two?
Spread across the two
Okay, and how often do all 16 of you meet together?
Not that often. Apart from Let's, which is once a week,
Yeah.
we don't actually get to see each other too often. Unless if we somehow like come across each other while punching karma and so on.
Okay, and so within the group of either the morning teachers or the wider group, is anybody taking a lead in terms of technology?
Taking a lead. How would you define taking a lead?
Vaguely, because I don't want to use words like coordinator, because that has a kind of meaning of some kind of specific role designated. I'm really thinking about people who are interested in technology use, who, because of their own interest, are pushing forward themselves and maybe indirectly influencing other people to try it out.
I would say if that's the case, then I might be the one to lead, in the sense that it's because it's written in our program book that I am one of the 21st teacher.
21st century.
21st century teaching teacher. In the sense that I find it's a huge responsibility, which I am trying to just like have it done properly.
What do you have to do to be a 21st century teacher?
Introduce the use of like all the technologies and stuff, depending on my own ability, whether what I feel I'm interested in. I don't think there's a push for me to use anything. There's no really clear guideline of what you have to do.
Okay, so in this kind of leading kind of role, albeit informally, unofficially, not very designated role, do you feel that you are beginning to build like a community in terms of technology usage? Do you feel that it's growing a little bit?
Would you say that community comes from the students themselves, or like in terms of the teaching community?
Teaching community, I'm talking about teaching community.
Okay, teaching community, I guess with us here, we do actually have it discussed, like for materials that we do use and if it's effective and so on, we do have it discussed, and like I do sometimes show it to my mom, which she's my colleague and so on. So I do share it there. In terms of the teaching community as a whole, I wouldn't say that there's been much like a building.
Okay. Have you supported or asked for support from your colleagues, either within the department or outside, in terms of technology use?
What sort of support would I be expecting?
Well, if you weren't sure how to use something, but you knew somebody in the geography department did, go and see him or her. Or equally, someone comes, they've heard that you've used Padlet, and they come to you, or even something more simple, like, they think you might know about listening sites or something. Does that kind of thing been happening?
I do actually go to we do have our own ICT teacher, so I do go and see her. The reason why I did go and see her was to set up the internet connection at the room which I have set up. So we had an observation last time. We were supposed to have an observation by officers from JPN, from the higher people in the education department. So I had to set up the place with an internet connection, so I do go and see her for that particular purpose. But in terms of using tools, I haven't actually gone to ask other people around. I usually find my way around things.
What about people coming to ask you?
People coming to ask me, I think I did have a question once from my head of the English panel as to what ideas can we do, because she's having an observation. I'm having another observation as well for our whole year that we're supposed to have. So she wants to share ideas with me what I'm doing, and I'd like to see some of the ideas that she had as well. But it's not really specifically on the use of ICT, but the idea is to try and use videos at least, because we want more marks, right?
Okay. Do you feel you're in any way guiding the department in terms of technology use? You mentioned this 21st century teaching, but has this gone as far as to say, all of us should be using video, or do you leave that to your head of panel?
If I were to consider that question, I'd say that even back in 2014, I've had the administrators asked me to give a talk on this one observation that we had, because like there were principals from all over the district who had to come to our school because our principal is the head of the whole district. So she was asked to provide one lesson on 21st century teaching,
Right.
and I was the one chosen to actually teach. So after, as an aftermath of that, I had to give a whole talk to the whole teaching community in the school. So that's where I do think I had the chance to share experience on. I shared my lesson plan.
Mhm.
I shared the main thing was the questions that were asked, which were higher order thinking questions.
Right.
That was the main focus, and so my principal asked us to share how the questions were asked and how I leveled the question.
Okay. And did that lesson happen to use technology or
Definitely, yeah. It's actually the one that you observed was like I actually copied some of the things from the first observation. I've had numerous observations done. Yeah.
Okay. So would you say then, are you developing informal links around the school with other departments who know? Look, they obviously know you're a 21st century teacher. Has that gone beyond it being just a name on a page saying the 21st century teachers are blah blah blah? Has that translated into any kind of informal sharing or helping of other departments, or is it?
I wouldn't say that there have been people who asked for help or anything, but I would be willing to if there were people who would. But what I can see from here is that usually, if there were observations to be carried out, I'd
Yeah.
be the one who they would like push to
Yeah.
have it done, so that I could share what I have in mind in terms of how I would translate a 21st century teaching.
Okay, so then I think you've already answered this. You are kind of representing the department within the school and maybe a little bit beyond, even in terms of visitors coming from
I remember
outside.
giving one more sharing. That was back in 2015, I think, whereby my head of GKMP, like head of the department for the whole language department.
Yeah.
So she asked me to give a talk on higher order thinking skills questions to the whole district's head of departments. Yeah. So I was just a normal teacher. I was supposed to share that. That did make me feel like there must be something that I could share with them.
Okay. So, in terms of, they come back to the idea of leadership. Is there anyone else apart from you who's pushing on with technology a little bit?
I believe that the Teach for Malaysia group, we have
Yeah.
got 3 of them. They are definitely keen on the use of ICT. We have even had one of them bring students to a competition, but that was not for English. He had it done for maths.
Right.
It's a maths competition, but it requires innovation in terms of how they're supposed to have mathematics around the school, like introduce to students like technology. So he did bring the students to a competition, and then they actually won, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So he's a Teach for Malaysia
Right.
colleague that I have here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. In terms of role again, if there's a few points here, and if this describe how far does this describe you? Do you feel you're leading by example?
That's exactly what I'm doing, because I don't like to actually say that, oh, I'm good in this, and actually say it to anyone.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, if I am to be leading right now, I am doing it by example, not saying anything.
Okay. Do you think you portray a positive attitude towards technology?
I'm trying to.
Do you think you have a good relationship with your colleagues apart from your mother?
I believe I do. Yeah, colleagues in the sense that it's more of the head of the English panel compared to others, but I'll try.
So you've described these different things that you've done, and you do have a formal role as a 21st century teacher. Is there any other kind of formal role you have within the department?
I'm the secretary of the English department, whereby if there are any clerical work, if we have to write letters and so on. So my head of the English department would ask for my help.
Sounds like a terrible job.
Yeah, it's a terrible, it's a terrible job.
It's a job that nobody wants.
Yes.
You've got that.
Yeah, got that. And paperwork and so on. But
Okay.
it's something which doesn't come that often.
Right. Okay. And point about outside training you've already mentioned. To what extent, in terms of lack of technology use, is it to do with the individual teacher, and to what extent is it due to the infrastructure in the school?
I'm pretty sure that if there are like interactive whiteboards
Yeah.
and projectors in each and every class, every teacher will be using them, because it's easier in the sense that all you have to have is like your own laptop and your own pen drive or your own hard disk, and everything's there. You don't actually have to like bring books and so on. It's actually easier if we come to think about it. So I wouldn't say that it's because of attitude, depending on the generation. However, it does depend on some. Like the older generation would feel that it's too much of a hassle.
Yeah.
But like I believe that as the generation comes, like